Hi, it's Ed from the New Media Zone, and usually we're taking a look at the new movie and DVD releases on the show, but today there's a new model out. It's the Lost in Space CYCLOPS and CHARIOT from Doll & Hobby. A new re-release, the model AURORA model from the 60s, and also we have the Polar Lights version I happen to have down here. So we can compare these two, and also a resin version I have, which I did from maybe 1990, long before there were companies putting out these re-releases of models. I don't know where I got that one. Maybe that Toy Shop magazine, who knows? But we can take a look at that one too. So let's crack the boxes open. Now let's take a look at the brand new one here. Brand new art on the fronts. Nice arts. Now the difference here, the good thing about this new release is they have added Judy and Dr. Smith figures, which weren't in the original version. So that's a nice update. Also, there is a backdrop, a two-sided backdrop. You can see that on the back. There is a backdrop there, which is nice. A lot of re-releases have been doing that. The Batmobile models have had backgrounds like this. So, and updated decals. We can compare the old ones and the new ones because I have the old ones here. So let's open the box. There it is. And I pre-opened the bag so we can get in there easier. These are all the figures. Now here's a little bonus. The bonus Dr. Smith and Judy, which are resin figures, new resin figures. The instructions, which we can compare to the other ones when we open that up. See if they're the same or they are different, but here they are here. I think in the old ones they didn't actually name the characters. It was just figure B and A. Here we have Penny, Maureen, Don, Judy, Dr. Smith, and there are the backdrops we can take, and they did do the Land of the Giant Snake with the backdrop, which I don't have, but when I get that one we can make a little video. Here are the updated decals, which we can compare to the old ones. These are supposed to be much better, and they look pretty good. Now here is the backdrop, which looks like where they filmed out there in the Western Valley, whatever they call it. Now this side is the daytime side and has the Jupiter 2 down here in a tiny robot, which you have to be careful when you put on your decals. We can't have the robot in two places. Now the decals have two options. One for we have the robot in there and one that we don't. So if you're gonna, you have to think about that if you're gonna use the backdrop with the robot, which you can't, he's not all that big. I'm wondering how the molds, because that's a good 20 plus years ago, the old one. And if those were, I don't know if those were the new molds, or I doubt they had the AURORA molds for these. But there, we can compare. Do we have a Will in here? I wanted to compare a Will because Will is loose on the other one. So we have these. Why don't we compare these to, well, the 1998, I believe, Polar Lights version. Now, this one, it feels like the plastic is a little heavier here. Okay, so this is good to compare. We've got the two rocks with the names on them. I'm going to say the newer version is a tad softer. What do you think there at home? It's a tad bit softer. Maybe it's the plastic, maybe the mold is a little older. I'm not sure, but not bad. It looks, especially in the eye in the end, looks like the older one's a little sharper. Why don't we open? Looks like the directions are a lot nicer in the new version. Here, what do we got on the final shot here? Does it look like, looks like we got new art there, perhaps. Okay. Let's compare the decals. There's the decals. Here's the old decals. Old decals were a little green and not all that realistic, and the newer ones are a little bit more real looking. Although, when I painted my resin version, I just gave them a little gray because I figured the gray rock was behind it, and I also painted the curtains on there. So this was the resin version. That's all we had, kids, back in the 90s. And of course, I never had the original one because it was only out briefly when the show was on. I do remember watching the show at the time, but the only thing I had was the Remco robots. I did have that. Let's compare the Cyclops. Let's see if there looks like the detail is similar, but I can't tell if it's the plastic again or the mold. It's a little softer on the newer one. A little softer, but not bad, and probably not as bad as the resin one. We'll get a close-up on the resin one to see how we could. These resin recast things, they had to recast an original model, so we probably lost a lot of detail there, especially on the figures, which we'll compare in a minute. So we compare those. Let's compare. Let's see if we have Will, because we got Will. The Polar Lights version is a little browner, and this is the newer version. It's tough to tell, so I have my paint down here. We're going to paint the faces a little bit. And this is the resin one with my little paint job. Okay, here's my secret formula of burnt sienna and the flesh, medium flesh. And that always gets a nice basic flesh tone. That's what I used to start with. So we mix those up. We get something that looks... What this is, whose flesh looks like this, I don't know, but they call that flesh. Okay, that looks a lot better. I don't know if I had my secret formula down when I did this resin one. Probably not. 1990. No, I'm not sure what that is. So let's just put a little paint on the face. Of course, you have to put your primer down first, but this is just to compare the detail on the older and the newer one. I think, again, the older one is a tad more detailed. So I don't know if it's the plastic or the age of the mold. But son of a gun if that resin one doesn't look too bad. Alright. So there we have it. Do our best to zoom in. People are probably wondering what these new resin Judy and Dr. Smith looks like here. So let's throw a little paint on Dr. Smith. And I know they got his nose down pretty good. And let's see, Judy. Judy, well, looks like a female figure. That's Judy here. So we'll... Okay, back over to the resin one. Now, I don't know where I got this robot here. He's a resin robot, and he doesn't have a lot of detail. But I did manage to put the little electrical charges in there. That was kind of fun. And all the figures, which I have to glue some arms back on. And the chariots, which there were no decals of any kind in this version. Back then, I think I did a pretty good job on the windows. Oh, now I've never used these paragraphic add-ons. They're metal, and you can, I think they do these a lot with spaceship control panels and things. So I've never gotten any of these before. And this was not the one to start with. These are way too tiny to put on this cherry here. Now they want you to cut off these pieces. Oh, I'm painting as I go. Cut off these pieces, and then the bumper parts you're supposed to cut off and replace this bumper here with this. Now I don't know how you glue this tiny edge onto here, but I'm not going to find out. So if anybody's looking for paragraphics for this, this will be going up on eBay. I might have been able to use these grills here. They're a little bigger, but look at these handles. Who is going to be able to glue that on? They're way too tiny. I just, the handles I can paint on fine with some paint if I need a handle on there. But probably is a wonderful looking thing, but I'm not cutting these tiny handles out and trying to glue those by the edge onto the chariot. No, that's what paintbrushes are for. Look at this fine detail over here. There was no paragraphics at the time when I painted all these on. All right. So I think that covers everything. Okay, let's review the new Chariot and Cyclops kit. We compared that with the Polar Lights version, and just a tad softer on the new release. We looked at the new Judy and DR Smith. Those are nice addition. We looked at the decals. Again, better decals on a choice of robot or no robots in the Chariot. And remember, in the actual show, Robot and DR Smith were back at the ship because they weren't in the pilot episode. So that's something to think about too. And we do have the robot down here back at the Chariot. So if you want to use this, you either have to paint out the robot or you have to make sure you choose the right version for the Chariot. And here, this is a nice addition. The backdrop for the Cyclops. So you can use that, or you can use the nighttime version. I believe a daytime version was in the show. So let's put that there. So if you don't have that old release from Polar Lights of the Chariot and Cyclops, this is a great addition. Go out and get that now. Unless you've worked with these paragraphics, I would suggest this is not the place to use them on this tiny Chariot, unless you have tweezers and a steel nerve there. That's a tough job. So, we'll give the model a thumbs up, and we will see you back here next time as we take a look at the new movie and TV releases.